We've heard about 10 names that not only make sense for Nebraska, but that actually fit the description of what Trev Alberts said he was looking for. It's hard not to believe the Matt Rhule rumors based on his resume, the reasonable price tag, and the fact he's the opposite of flashy. But until the official announcement, anything can still happen. These recent rumors are coming out of nowhere, and most of them are just made up, but because there are so many, it's time we talk about how well he fit in Lincoln. So today, I'm giving you my thoughts on the latest rumors about Matt Rhule to let you know what I think's going on, and I'll make the case for why he's a fit at Nebraska and what his red flags are. But what's up, guys? I'm Connor Hayden, and this is Corn Crazed. If you're a fan of Nebraska or the Big Ten, make sure you hit the subscribe button because we just hit 15,000. And if you want Trev to bring Matt Rhule to Lincoln, hit the like button now and help us get to 1,000. But now, let's get into it.
Yet across midfield. Touchdown, Nebraska. Omar Manning.
In the past 24 hours, I've seen multiple posts about a plane from Charlotte coming to Lincoln. Nebraska reporters hinted that we could have seen an announcement as soon as this morning, and even Desmond Howard threw in his prediction for Rhule during College game day on Saturday. Not that his opinion matters, since he thought Nebraska should have gotten kicked out of the Big Ten back in 2020, and he thought Texas A&M was winning the Natty this year. But because there's been so much talk about Matt Rhule these past few days, I'd have to imagine that at least one of these dozens of rumors floating around could be true. But let's recap. Sunday afternoon, Twitter went crazy with speculation that Trev Alberts would announce the new hire today. Nebraska reporters who know about as much about the future as we do at this point were all on standby waiting for an email saying there'd be a press conference, and after the second false alarm in 2 weeks, pretty much everybody agrees the announcement won't come until the day after Iowa. The only benefit to announcing it this early would be to lock the guy in so other schools can't poach him at the last minute, or to get a start on recruiting, because once it's official, the entire class is going to start researching this next head coach. I guess another benefit would be being able to say Mickey will be part of this staff too, and that could help keep fans excited for the future, but I'm not sure that even matters at this point. I had a hard time believing any of that was more important than respecting the current team, who still has 2 games left, so when no announcement came today, I wasn't surprised. You don't announce a new head coach and just leave the guys who are still playing feeling like their efforts are meaningless because their school and fan base just wants to move on to next year. I do think that if Trev Alberts doesn't have a written agreement with his guy yet, he's going to in the next 7 days, because there's no way he can afford to run the risk of losing him as soon as the coaching carousel starts and those ridiculous contract offers start coming in. When Trev first listed what he was looking for in his next head coach, we knew the hire probably wasn't going to be a flashy name like Urban Meyer or Lane Kiffin. We knew he wanted a coach who fit culturally and either had Big Ten experience or at least the Big Ten philosophy of developing the line and running the ball. I've heard that Trev wasn't trying to go the USC route and steal a coach for $100 million or even get into a bidding war, so as soon as Rhule was fired at Carolina, he immediately popped out as somebody who was more of a probability than a possibility. The Panthers still owe him $40 million since he signed a 7-year deal and got fired before year 3. So if Nebraska offers him 6 or 7 a year for 5 years, Carolina's got to pay the difference. He checks the boxes that we know we're going to get with this next coach. So unless all this is just a smokescreen and the real hire is Stoops, Leipold, or Kleiman, I bet Trev's already done the deal and just waits 12 more days to announce it. I'll get into why this hire would make sense, but before I do, I wanted to drop a promo code for the merch because I was going to do it Black Friday, but this season's been so terrible, I think it's better we start now. So if you use the code GBR, you get 25% off your entire order on our site, and that includes hoodies, stickers, t-shirts, socks, wristbands, all of it. So head to corncraze.com and get your size before we sell out. And today's video is brought to you by BroThrow, where you can bet on games without the headache of linking a bank account and depositing any money, or dealing with any state restrictions since it's legal everywhere. You can sign up and join our group at brothrow.com/GBR to start making picks for games with anywhere from $5 to $100 and get paid for your wins or pay your losses with Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, or any of the other payment options the site offers. You save money on the VIG, and it costs nothing to sign up, and you only need to be 18 to use it. So even if you're not a big gambler, but you think you might want to try it out once during bowl season or during the playoffs, you can still join our group for the future. Now let's talk about Matt Rhule's career and why he's a fit in Lincoln. Number one, he has a strong resume on both sides of the ball. Rhule's coached the D-line at Temple, Buffalo, and UCLA. He worked with linebackers at Albright and Western Carolina, the offensive line for the New York Giants, and last, tight ends and QBs at Temple. He spent 13 years as a position coach and 3 as an offensive coordinator before he got his first head coaching job. Those experiences in the G5, Pac-10, Big 12, and the NFL means he knows what it takes to be an assistant at any position on the staff, and it only helps him work with and make his staff better over time. In 2019, his last year as Baylor's head coach, they finished top 20 in total D and number 27 in offense, so he leads a balanced team with focus on both sides. And after years of focus on offense and a lacking D, Nebraska's desperately in need of somebody who can provide some more balance. Number two, his teams are always progressing. Rhule's only been a head coach at 2 schools, but at both those stops, his teams never took a step back. Sure, he bounced out of both spots before we could get a better sample size, but we're making the case for him right now. In 4 years at Temple, his teams went from 2 to 6 to 10 wins with a bowl loss, and finally 10 wins with a bowl win. And in 3 years at Baylor, his teams went from 1 to 7 and finally 11 wins in the last year and a top 13 finish. I think a good way to describe Matt Rhule is that he's a builder. Not a rebuilder, just a builder, but we'll talk more about that in a bit. Number 3, he's a championship level coach. He hasn't won a big bowl game or made the playoff yet, but his Temple team went 1-1 in the American Conference Championship back-to-back years, and his 2019 Baylor team lost to OU in the Big 12 Championship in overtime. Nebraska has a history of losing in November, and that ultimately cost Bo Pelini multiple opportunities to win the West. Rhule's been much better at closing out seasons strong. His November record during winning seasons is 13-7, and if there was one goal I could set for the next head coach, it'd be for him to field a team that plays better in late season games. And number 4, he's a strong leader, coach, and motivator. I found a few videos on YouTube of Rhule talking about brand, toughness, and building a culture, all of which are extremely important for any successful team. He preaches that having a staff that goes above and beyond results in players who do the same, and that mental toughness is just as important as physical toughness. He gets upset over mental penalties like false starts or lining up incorrectly, but he just wants his players to be as smart as they are strong. Scott Frost failed to establish a brand in Nebraska. Some of the most famous quotes from other coaches are about how strong the team looked compared to how weak they played, and Rhule's the polar opposite. One quote I've seen him drop a bunch: brand is when image, how people see you, meets identity, what you really are. His emphasis on culture works for building a strong program because a team with one common goal and a group commitment to doing the things the right way equals more wins and long-term success. Now for why this hire might be a risk. Number 1, he hasn't had success against elite coaches or teams. In 39 games at Baylor, Rhule never beat a ranked team, and he never beat a team that finished with more than 8 wins. In 2019, they lost to Lincoln Riley's OU twice, and they lost to Kirby Smart's Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. His best wins came at Temple against a 7-win Penn State, a 9-win Navy, and a 9-win Memphis. His experience is great. His record in 3 of his 6 years as a head coach is amazing, but the Big Ten's a different animal, and not only are the teams and talent way better than he's ever seen, but the coaches are twice as good across the board. Number 2, he's never had to rebuild a team from ground zero. In the 4 years before taking over at Temple, Steve Adazio and Al Golden posted an 8-win and 2 9-win seasons. Rhule led him through a transition from the MAC to the American, so the competition level changed a bit, but this wasn't a perennial 4-win school with no recent success. Baylor was led by Art Briles for 9 years before Rhule got that job, and outside of the 7-6 year in 2016, just 1 year before he took over, Briles was winning 10 or 11 games every season. People like to tell this story that Baylor was ruined and they had nothing left when that coaching change was made, but that's just not true. Even after losing their coach, that 2016 team finished with a bowl win. Some players left and recruiting got tougher, but they were still able to hold on to their starting QB, 3 offensive linemen, 4 of the top 7 receivers, and 2 of the 3 leading rushers. Based on his only 2 college jobs, Rhule's shown that he's got to break a team down to 1 or 2 wins out the gate before he can build them up the way he wants. Number 3, he doesn't stay at one place for very long. I wasn't too worried about this if we got the right coach who could turn things around quickly. But the problem with Rhule is, it's going to take him at least 3 years to get back on track. What happens if he decides he wants to move back east to get closer to home? Are we supposed to deal with a 3-year rebuild similar to what we accepted with Scott Frost and then lose him after a couple of those 7 or 8 win years? Is it worth sitting through a long rebuild if we never get the reward we're waiting for? And last at number 4, he's behind as a college coach. Matt Rhule's been in the NFL since 2020, and since then, we've seen the transfer portal open up and NIL got introduced. It's hard enough for current coaches who've already been in the game to deal with it, but this is new territory for a guy who got out before things got complicated. I'm sure he can pick it up and learn pretty quick, but how many pieces can he pull from the portal to act as band-aids while he builds? And does he get NIL going as quickly as we'd hope he could, being at a school with big-time resources? If I had to guess who the next coach would be, as of today, I'd probably say Matt Rhule, because he just sounds like a guy Trev would pursue. But again, none of us know anything, and it's probably just as likely to be any other candidate that we've talked about. If it does happen, I'll be really interested to see what assistants are brought in, since I'm sure he has a ton of relationships and plenty of coaches are going to want their shot in the Big Ten. But I want to know what you think, so let me know in the comments below. Were you surprised that Rhule wasn't announced on Monday, or are you used to these crazy Twitter rumors now? Is he as good a fit as anybody else, or are you hoping Trev goes a different direction? And do you think he could get this team back to a bowl game next year, or is this a 2 or 3 year project? I know some people wouldn't be thrilled about this hire, but if he gets this job, most analysts would probably grade this as a B+ or even an A higher. But that's all I got for you today, so until next time, thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Go Big Red.